My name is Ed Koch, and I'm here to endorse Bob Turner. Now, I prepared a rather extended statement, which I'm not going to read, which I hope you'll include and incorporate as part of my remarks, because I worked very hard on this statement, and it sets forth my feelings at length. But I'm going to briefly say why it is that I'm endorsing Bob. I am a dedicated Democrat, although I've crossed party lines before. I endorsed John Lindsay. I endorsed Rudy Giuliani in his 2 successful elections. I endorsed George W. Bush in his re-election, and it was because of special circumstances. When Lindsay ran, the city was in terrible shape, and he was a voice for progress as opposed to the Democratic candidate at that time, Procaccino, you may remember. I thought that Giuliani was very important. We didn't agree on everything, but the city needed his expertise, particularly in the area of crime, police, and so forth. And then when it came to George W. Bush, I endorsed him in his re-election because, as I said at the time, I didn't agree with him on a single domestic issue. That was what I said. But the issue of terrorism was the most important issue, and I didn't think that the Democratic candidate understood that, and therefore I crossed party lines. So, but overall, I have endorsed thousands of Democrats, and I'm proud of being a Democrat. So why is it that in this case I'm endorsing Bob Turner, who is a Republican? I want to send a message to Washington. In the case of my own party and President Obama, and he's a very likable guy, and I agree with him on a whole host of issues, but I disagree with him on some essential issues. I disagree with him on the way he views the state of Israel and what I perceive to be his hostility to the state, evidenced over an extended period of time. He hasn't even been there. He's been, I think, to Egypt twice. He has a different vision with respect to the relationships in the Mideast, and I want to send a message. That's not the vision that New Yorkers and Jewish and Christian supporters of the state of Israel have. It's a message. And I believe that the positions of Bob Turner on supporting the state of Israel and denouncing the fact that President Obama imposes conditions on Israel, says the 67 lines, and doesn't impose any conditions on the Palestinian Authority, which now includes Hamas, a terrorist organization. Doesn't say to Hamas, before Israel should negotiate with you, you should make a statement that you recognize it as a Jewish state, or that you will recognize it as such when the negotiations conclude. That you give up violence, which is part of their charter, violence. Their charter says that every Jew that entered historic mandate of Palestine should be, after 1917, should be expelled. And the president demands that Israel negotiate with them and says you must go back to what in effect are indefensible frontiers. It's just not right. And this is the message that I want to send with the great help of Bob Turner. But there are other messages that are equally important, domestic measures, and they relate to the Republican Party, and that is the issues. Those are the issues of Medicare and Medicaid and Social Security, and it was George Bush who urged that Social Security be privatized. That is the Republican position. That is not my position. That is not the position of most Americans. And it is the position of the chairman of the Budget Committee in the House of Representatives, which is now under the control of the Republicans, that Medicare be privatized, that Medicaid be a block grant instead of a right. I'm against that. And I announced it, and Bob Turner called me. And I was very pleased that he did. And I said, come on in, let's talk about it. And he came to my office, and we talked about it. And we talked about these 4 issues which affect our disagreement, in my case, with the Democratic Party, and in his case, his disagreement with the Republican Party. And I thought to myself, you know, this election, which is only one of 2 elections in the whole country that is taking place this year for Congress, and one is uncontested. I think it's in Nevada. So this is the only election where there's a contest going on. That happens every 4 years. Is 1 year when there are practically no elections. And the only reason we have it now is it's a special election. And I believe there could be no better opportunity to send the kind of message and make it into a referendum that existed in Massachusetts when the most Democratic state for the most Democratic seat in America, the Kennedy seat, sent Scott Brown, a Republican, to Washington. And it had an enormous impact. There's no question in my mind that the president moved to the economic center, what he thought of as the economic center of the country. I think moved too far right, frankly, in many of his changes. But nevertheless, the impact was there. And it's my hope, my expectation, that the voters of the 9th CD, with this unique opportunity that happens maybe once in a lifetime, if it ever happens to a congressional district, will use it to send messages to both the Democratic Party, President Obama, and to the Republican Party and its leadership. And that's why I'm supporting Bob Turner. Bob.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I accept this endorsement with humility and gratitude. This, I think, may be the single factor when the votes are counted on the 13th that will say this is what put him over the top. Campaigning for some isn't always a lot of fun, but this last week, my conversations with Ed Koch will be the highlight of this campaign. I can't tell you how thoroughly I've enjoyed these conversations. We've discussed the things we agree on and the things that we might not. But importantly, in the social programs, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and what they mean to the people in the 9th CD, we're on board. We're of one mind. These programs must be protected. They must be preserved. They must be considered a moral obligation and a legal right. Privatization, unheard of. We just won't do it. And for the changes that will happen in the future. Social Security will be protected, Medicare will be protected for those 55 and over, period. And together, bipartisan, both parties will work together to see what we have to do going forward. We all know the problems this country is facing with deficit, unemployment, and a stalled economy. I think my contribution, I hope, will be to bring a practical business sense to Washington. That's all I can do. I'm a citizen candidate. I'm not a career politician. And I hope I'll be listened to. So I'll be listening to the people. And I know what they have to say. Fix things. Thank you.